I couldn't go back. I lost all my ranking points and I thought, oh God, I better get something going in Europe. I started playing golf when I was 7. I lived in Sutton in Surrey and my mum played at Banstead Downs. We had a fantastic junior section. There were 2 families that each had 7 children in the family. So there was a ready-made junior section, plus me, plus a few others. And it was just wonderful. And we got going as juniors and I just loved it from the word go. I thought it was fantastic. They were very encouraging there at Banstead Downs. By the age of 12, I had a 12 handicap, which doesn't sound much now, but at that time it was very good. I was always out with a group of boys. You know, we used to go out and play golf and had the freedom of going out on the downs. We lived in this bungalow. If I went out on the grass verge in the road, I could hit wedge shots over the bungalow into our back garden. So my mum went out shopping and I thought, oh yes, and there I was hitting balls over the bungalow. And then one day she came back from the other direction and found me in the grass verge in the road hitting balls over the bungalow. What are you doing? I said, well, they'll all be there. I'll just go and collect them, you know. So I just had this kind of love of golf right from the word go, and I think some people do. I was at London University and in those days you couldn't even ask about being a professional. I went to Slassinger's and asked them what would happen if I wanted to be a professional golfer, and they told someone in the ladies golf union and I was turned professional. I got a letter basically saying we'll give you till January the 1st to turn professional, otherwise we'll do it for you, sort of thing. So I didn't have any option.
And were there tournaments for you to play in?
I had to go over to America. I say I had to go over to America because there was absolutely nothing else. In 1969, when I finished at university, I went for a few tournaments then and managed to get my player's card straight away in the first 3 tournaments I played, and then was able to go out each year, 69, 70, 71. I was doing very much teaching, but going over to America, and that was quite difficult because the Americans were very anti-overseas players. I mean, we had to pay double the entry fee. We could only play a certain number of tournaments. So the Japanese were really the first people with me, Sally Little from South Africa, Sandra Post from Canada. There weren't a lot of overseas players then. Then sadly my mother was taken very ill, had a brain tumour. I couldn't go back. I lost all my ranking points and I thought, oh God, I better get something going in Europe. When I joined the PGA, my membership card said, Miss V. Saunders is a member of the PGA. Please give him the courtesy of your course. It was all men, you know, and I would get things, dear sir, and I'd go to a training thing and it's okay lads and Vivien, you know, it was like that. Then 31st December 1975, Sex Discrimination Act. So I said, look, boys, you know, you've got to allow this. No, we won't. So the Queen was the patron of the PGA. So I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write to the Queen and say, will you please withdraw your patronage from the PGA because they won't have women. You wouldn't do that, you wouldn't do that. I said, just watch me. So I said, what do I get for my membership? The membership for the PGA said that women members shall have the same rights as men, save that they may not play in tournaments, attend meetings or vote. So I said, what does it allow me? So they said, you can wear a PGA tie. So I actually had a PGA tie. So I said, well, look, I'll tell you what, I'll write to the Queen and maybe you'd like to have a headscarf for her because I'm sure she doesn't want a PGA tie. So the Sex Discrimination Act, it started to change the world. I mean, before that, I went for an interview with a firm of accountants. They said, we wouldn't normally employ a woman. And then I qualified to be a solicitor even after that. And I think people rarely realise what it was. I mean, you see in tennis, you see with Billie Jean King. We had exactly the same fight in golf. It was horrendous, really. I had some help from the LPGA who was supportive. Betsy Rawls, who sadly died a little while ago. Some of the others who were, you know, helpful. There's not much they could do with Europe, but they realised how difficult it was. We had a tournament, the Colgate Championship, which was a European championship, where they came over, and it was almost as though it was an American tournament at Sunningdale, and we were their guests. So that helped, because people saw the very, very top level women pros playing at Sunningdale.
And you were at the forefront of that fight. Where did that spirit to kind of break down barriers come from?
I don't know. I mean, I was brought up with only my mum, and I think, you know, I had to sort of fight for everything I got. So by the time then she died, I was only 24 then, and I'd got to sort of get on with things. We'd got one or two people starting to want to be professional golfers. And so the first thing I did was I went to the Ladies Golf Union and said, we'd really like an open championship for professionals. They said, well, you'll have to get a sponsor. So I said, okay, well, how much do you think you want? So for the first tournament, £1,000. So I got out my checkbook, wrote them a cheque for £1,000, said, ladies, we've now got an open championship. I actually got my money back because they did then find a sponsor. But the main thing was I'd written the cheque, they banked the cheque, that was all it. And then eventually they got a sponsor and I got my money back. I didn't know I was going to get it back. I thought, well, let's just get this going, because you do need prize money. But there's also pride of performance and the fact of being able to have a championship and people saying, yes, you know, I've won that championship. And so the first British Women's Open was in 1976, which Jenny Lee Smith won. So with that, I then thought, right, we must get a proper tour started. And the men's PGA were absolutely appalling. The executive director said to me, if you dare start a women's tour, I'll make sure you never earn another penny from golf in this country. So I said, okay, fine. I'd met up with a man called Barry Edwards, who was brilliant, and he found the sponsorship for us and put together this package of tournaments. Had support from Peter Allis. We announced that we were starting this tour in 1978, and we did it. We said, okay, here we are, we've got the Women's PGA. People said, yeah, okay, we'll play. And it was very courageous. I think 30 people maybe the first year.
Did you play in that first tournament?
I did, actually. It was at my home club at Tyrrellswood in Leatherhead. So I then go, oh, she wants it at her home club, so she'll win. I go, no, it's nothing like that. It's actually finding somewhere that really wants to have that first tournament. We'd got some sponsorship. Shirley Porter, who's daughter of Tesco's founder, she played. We've got people from Lever Brothers, you know, very, very good people who actually came on board, really, because I'd managed to get it at Tyrrellswood. By that time, I was qualifying to be a solicitor, so I only played probably the first two tournaments, and I played the British Open, and I went and played in the tournament at Sunningdale, the British Car Auctions, while I was a trainee solicitor, and managed to win that, which was nice. So I started off as chairman of the first couple of tournaments. Beverly Lewis, who sadly died a few years ago, Beverly took it on and was a wonderful chairman. And also I wasn't particularly involved with it then, so I just had that very short period of doing it. I went on the committee again at another stage. I'd been a professional by 10 years by the time it started. Now this is a lesson for the complete beginner, showing him or her how to actually start and swing a golf club. I'd always wanted to teach. I was actually more interested in teaching than playing, and I always have been more interested in teaching golf. I didn't have any idea of being a solicitor. My mother told me that solicitors were dreadful people, you should never trust them. And so I thought, perhaps I'll go and be a solicitor. So I trained to be a solicitor. And then I combined that with doing my national coaching. So I would work as a solicitor Monday to Friday in Putney in London, and then be going off to do national coaching for England, for Ireland, in Wales. And then I bought the golf club here at the very end of 1986. I've achieved everything I wanted to do in teaching, apart from I didn't coach the Curtis Cup, the British team with that.
And what was it like playing, knowing this is the start of something new for women in Europe?
It was fantastic. I mean, I played in American, so I'd got that experience. And I did say to them early on, you mustn't let the greenkeeper at these clubs set up the pin positions. They'll make it difficult. We'll show these silly women, you know. I said, it's very important. I said, what happened in America, they'd have a tournament committee. They'd make sure that they went out and they got the greens set up as they want, the tees set up as they want. And I said, it's very important that we get it started right. And I think the first tournament, 79 and 80, it was very good. I had a vision of it carrying on. It didn't carry on as I wanted it to carry on. I wanted it to be more British based. I felt that the British players who had founded it needed to be protected all the time through their careers, because I could see that people would come in making it a secondary tour and squashed out a lot of the British players.
One thing we haven't spoken about is your British Open win.
It was just the second year. Jenny Lee Smith won the first year, and then we went to Lindrick, which is wonderful. And I looked at Lindrick and I thought, oh, this is just like home, because I was brought up at Banstead Downs in Surrey, which is sort of chalk and downland and gorse and things. And I got to Lindrick and I thought, oh, whoopee, this is just like home. And it was fantastic.
Those early days on tour, was there any good stories you remember or memories that stick in your mind?
I don't know really. I don't think there's anything I can politely tell you memories. I had fun when I went to America because they didn't see a lot of British people. So I went into McDonald's one day with some of the girls and I said, can I have a strawberry milkshake? What? Strawberry milkshake? And so this was all the time because they say strawberry. So I'd be sort of dragged off to people's houses, say strawberry milkshake. It was like I was a real figure of fun out there.
Let's talk about women's golf today then.
It has come a long way, but there's not the level of the number of tournaments that there is in men's golf. There's not the tour and then the next level and the next level and the next level like there are for men. We tried in late 80s, 90s to get a teaching division complete with the women, the WPGA or WPGET as it was then. But that was pushed aside, which I think was a shame, because with men pros, there's always tournaments. You don't really get somebody who's playing on the tour and then think, oh, I've got to go home in November and I'll be teaching November, December, January, and then off I go again. Whereas most of our women who've been very good players then go in to teach. People like Alison Nicholas, I mean, I don't know how many of our really great players are now club pros. The LET, I think it's fantastic. I think it's moved on tremendously. And I think if I look back at it and think, well, okay, in that 40 years or whatever it is, yes, it's progressed. It's amazing. I think for people to be able to win the sort of money they're winning, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think the tour is brilliant. I just think it is these other levels that I would like to see.